Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to do a preview of a prototype, and this is Timelancers, and this is published by Party Tales Games. Timelancers is going to be a 1 to 4 player game where you're trying to gain the most merits through selling your services to the highest bidder to go back in time and revise events and do all sorts of fun things. Let's go ahead down to the table here. I'm going to give you a general overview of the game itself, keeping in mind that the rules, the components, the art, all that stuff is subject to change before the finalized version of this game. So I just want to try to give you an overview of the rules and such, and just again keep in mind that those can change. So let's get down to the table here, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so we are going to look at the Timelancers prototype. So keep that in mind, it's a prototype. Everything here is subject to change, the rules, the components, the art. So know that this can be different from the final copy, but hopefully this will give you a general overview of some of the lore of the game and some of the rules of the game. So let's go ahead and start off with some of the lore. We're going to talk about the history of the Timelancers, which is what this is going to be set in. At the end of the 21st century, scientists used particle accelerators to create a new element called temporalium, commonly referred to as time gem. And in this game, for this component is going to be a time gem, which is going to be these blue little crystals here. Time gems bend time and space and allow for time travel. However, the average human body is too fragile to withstand the quantum changes that occur during that process. At the beginning of the 26th century, scientists successfully edited human DNA and produced a new species capable of surviving time travel called Homo temporis, also known as temps. Once time travel became possible, political factions started fighting over control of the past in order to alter the future. The Time Wars saw millions of people killed and erased from history as factions went back and changing the past. In 2140, Johannesburg, which is where the game is set, the new world capital, banned any form of time travel and controversial procedure that created temps. A new police force called Time Enforcers, which are in these little black cars for the game, were established to aggressively hunt down any temps that continued to time travel. A small group of temps formed an underground collective that began growing for the 13 years since the travel ban. They have become freelance mercenaries for the warring factions, changing the past for the highest bidder. They call themselves Timelancers. All right, so that's a little bit of lore. This is going to be set up. You're going to pick a first player. They're going to get this first player time token, and every player is going to get a board. They're going to get a Timelancer, and they're going to get the matching color character piece. And you'll put that on the Timelancer headquarters, which we'll set up in a second. Every other player is going to get a reference sheet, which is the rules reference sheet to help them out. You're going to randomly hand out a faction card, which is one of these, and you're going to randomly hand out 2 side jobs. The players are going to take a look at their side jobs, and they're going to pick one of them and discard the other. In addition to that, the first player will receive, like I said, that first player time marker, and depending on where their turn order is, they'll get different numbers of money and gems, time gems. So if you're the first player, you're going to get 5 money, which are denoted by this. These are 1s, and then they have 5s in here. And you're going to get 1 time gem. The second player is going to get 5 money, 2 time gems. Third player is going to get 6 money, 1 time gem. And the fourth player will get 6 money, 2 time gems. You'll also have these resource trays out for everyone to reach with all the resources in them. And you're going to separate all the different decks here by their backs. So there's going to be 4 different types of decks. So you're going to have your military here, you're going to have your science here, the green over there is the cultural, and the yellow is going to be the social. Once you shuffle those up, you're going to flip over 3 cards face up for each deck, and that's going to make up basically your market row for the game. Now, depending on count, you have these 2 enforcer decks. So one enforcer deck is going to say 1 to 4 player, and one enforcer deck is going to say 1 to 2 player. So this is set up for a 4-player game, but if you were playing a 2-player game, you would flip the top card from both of these and set these time enforcers in the location flipped. But we're playing for a 4-player game, so we're only going to flip 1. And in this case, this one is going to start in the prison on the board. Where's the prison? Right there. Okay. So I did jump ahead of myself a little bit because the first thing you really do is you're going to set up this board. The board's really, really easy to set up. All you're going to do is put out the Timelancer headquarters in the middle. You're going to shuffle up the rest of the tiles. You're going to put a tile around each edge of the Timelancer headquarter. And then after that, you can place these tiles anywhere you want as long as they're touching 2 other tiles. And once you've done that, you've set up your board. Super simple. And the nice thing about that is it gives a random element to every game for the locations of these cities on the board itself. So that, in a really quick nutshell, is going to be the setup for Timelancers. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do over is gameplay. The goal of the game. Each player is a Timelancer, and their goal is to gain the most merits to move up ranks of the Timelancer hierarchy. So at the end of the game, you want to have the most merits. Repeating or revising an event and placing it into the time machine is known as capturing event. Events that are currently on the player's time machine, which is right here, are captured events. Timelancers gain merits by capturing events, completing faction goals, which are right here, adding time locks to events, which are going to be these locks up here that we'll go over in a little bit. Where'd they go? Right here. These really cool 3D printed locks here, which again, these is a prototype. Upgrading their time machine, which is this right here. And these slots right here is what you're going to be upgrading itself. And collecting money and resources. Now, resources are worth more than money. Money is going to be something that you want to spend out throughout the game to do different things. And the money itself is 10 to 1. So that's going to be the worst exchange of everything. So in this game, use your money throughout the game is my little tip. And don't worry necessarily about the points that the money will give you. The game overview itself, the game is played over a series of rounds with each player taking 1 turn per round. A player turn consists of making up to 3 moves, either in Johannesburg or their time machine. So this Johannesburg's this big map here, and their time machine is down here. And you can do that in any combination that you wish for your 3, basically, actions, we'll call them, but they're going to be movement in the idea of this game. Once every player has taken the turn, an enforcement card will be drawn. This is going to be the enforcer deck that we're talking about. If you're 2-player, you draw 1 for each. If you're playing 4-player, 3 or 4-player, you're going to flip 1, and that's where the time enforcer will go to. Gameplay continues until one of the game ending conditions are met. For a traditional game, as soon as any player completes their faction card, end goals, or captures 9 events, so that's going to be along here, the game end begins. Each player that has not taken a turn during the round where the game was end will be able to take their turn, and at that point the game will end and the player's scores will be added up. On a player's turn, like I said, you can either move around Johannesburg, or you can you can go and jump onto your time machine and do one of these events on here. Now, let's go over moving around Johannesburg. So when you're moving around Johannesburg, When you move to a spot, so that's my first movement, I can perform the action of that spot. And then for my second movement, I move here, I can perform the action of that spot too. So, a couple rules about movement that you need to be aware of. If there's a person in the spot, you can move to the spot and perform the action of the spot, but you can't end your turn there, so I have to keep moving. You can't double back in the game. And if you run into the time enforcer, or you go over the prison spot, you must pay the current bribe. And what I mean by current bribe is going to be whatever number's listed here. So in this case, if I run into the time enforcer, or I run over the prison, I'm going to have to pay 2 monies. If I don't pay the 2 monies, then I get put in the prison. So if I run into a time enforcer way far away on the board, I don't necessarily want to be ejected all the way back to the prison. So in a really quick nutshell, that's going to be movement for the game. Now we said that you could move in Johannesburg, and then you could also move onto the time machine and or either. So if you move onto the time machine itself here, you could pick any one of these spaces and do the action on here. So some of the spaces are going to be, well, only one space is actually free. All the other spaces cost gems. So if I end on this here, I can flip one city tile. If I flip a city tile, I'll flip it to the other side. So there's 2 sides to each of these city tiles. So this city tile here, the jewelry, I can pay 1 money and get 2 time gems. And if I flip this guy, I have to pay 2 money to get 2 time gems. So I can make it worse for everyone else. Or if it was on the 2 money side, I could flip it over to the 1 money side to make it easier on myself. So maybe I wanted to be mean and I moved onto that spot, and then I moved onto my time machine and I flipped it over. Once in their time machine, players may move freely to any time machine action, which is going to be what I explained here. But if I go to any one of these spots, I have to pay the gem amount associated. So here's 1, this one's 2, this one's 3, and that one's 4, as it goes up. Now, if you stay in the time machine, you can move to other events in here as your movement, which you have 3 movement points again, but you can't go back to the one that you did that turn. So keep that in mind. You can't repeat your actions in a turn. When you're paying your time gem cost, the other thing you can do throughout the game is you can upgrade them. So if I upgrade this slot, it would only cost 1 time gem to go there. And you can upgrade these slots to some of them being free, which is very helpful in the game. And once you do there, if you can, you must do the action that you were on. One of the big things on your time machine is going to be capturing events. Players will capture events from the face-up rows. So remember, we have those 4 rows of cards here, all with different like themes to themselves. When you capture an event, you have to match the type that you're going to be in. So here's modern, this one here is going to be Middle Ages, and this one here is going to be ancient. And again, you have the 4 event types. You have cultural, military, science, and social. When a player captures an event, they should check their constant abilities first to see if they have any discounts. So you can gain abilities throughout the game. Abilities that are basically constant don't have little lightning bolts by them, which I'll show you in a second. And they occur no matter what. Some of them will give you discounts. Other than that, you're going to have to pay the resources to pick up one of these events. So this one here, this one's going to be a Middle Ages event, and this is the resources it's going to cost. So there's going to be, we'll go over resources in a second, but you're going to have to pay the 2 medkits, 2 guns, and a disguise to be able to pick up this event here. The player must place the capture event in one of the 9 spaces here, and it has to be in chronological order. The event does not need to be placed on the time machine action the player is currently occupying, which is this one right here. If the player performed a repeat action, they will place the event so that the title side of the card is touching the time machine. So this is going to be the top here. If they played a reverse action, they're going to have the time machine. So let's say I put this one here, which is going to be a Middle Ages event. I put it here, and it's chronological order right now, but later on this could move, but you can't actually move it unless it gets resorted by chronological order. I would put it on the reverse side if I ended up, like, let's say, in this reverse action. And one thing really important to remember about these is you will get the money for these events, and the points that you get for these events determines whether it's on the reverse side or not at the end of the game. So you actually want to pay attention to that, and you can lock them in at points to make sure that they stay there, or at least attempt to make sure that they stay there. Okay, so to reiterate a couple things about capturing these events is that the money on either of these sides, so this one's here 5 money and this one here's 4 money, you will not get this again. So once you place this down, that is what you're going to get for money. So even if you do a reverse or flip event or whatever you're doing to this event, you're still not going to gain any more money, but the card will rotate. And here on the top here is going to be a little flavor text on what the card's all about. And here is going to be its ability on this side. Here you're going to pay 1 less gun when you're trying to get time events, which is really cool. And on the reverse side here, you get any resource when you're trying to get time events. So this one can be super helpful. But anyway, that's just in a quick nutshell how you're going to be placing them and what they're going to do for you initially. And remember, one of the end game goals is going to be filling up this with your 9 events. So if capture event was revised, players will perform the following steps. So if I'm revising the event here, so I'm on the revise event, you're going to follow some steps. And this is when you're placing it. So this is, again, placing. Note the type of event and the year that it occurred. So this event here is going to be a military type event, and it occurred in 1206. And this gets into the placing them in chronological order when you put them down. All players, including the current player, will flip all events on their time machine that match the event and that occurred chronologically after. So that's very important, after. So this event won't get flipped because it didn't happen after this one. This is basically showing, like, because you revised an event, you're changing history. But that is not all that happens. So like I said, any event that matches that type will be flipped over if it's after that event's time, but also you're going to be flipping over all the tiles that match. So in this case, military, all these military tiles will flip to the other side, and they'll become better or worse depending on what side they flip to. So if there's player characters on there, just set them aside for a second, then flip the tile and place them back on there. After you've done all that, you have completed what will occur when you place down a revise event. If you flip one to revise, you're not going to be doing this. If you purchase a revise event and you place it on the revise side, you will be doing that. If you repeating an event, if the capture event was repeated, the players will proceed to their next move without performing the revise event steps. So you're only going to do this if you're going to be doing revise. There are some other type of time machine actions. So like here I can do a reserve event. Basically I can pick up one of these face up events and place it by my time machine, and that's going to be a reserved event. You can only reserve one event at a time, but if you reserve an extra, you can discard the one that you had and put it on the bottom of the event deck. Another thing to note is none of these event decks will refresh until the end of your turn. So you won't have new ones flipping out as you go that you can pick from. Only what's out is what you get. So you can also do flip your event. So here's flip your event. Players will flip one of their events on their own time machine. They will rotate their event from either repeat or revise or revise to repeat, they will not cause a revising event steps to occur. So keep that in mind. You can also flip a city tile, which is simply just flip a city tile. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more about these events. So some of these are going to be able to help you out. So actually, to clarify, I did mess this one up a little bit. Here you get to pay one less gun, but here you get to, if you go to this side, you will get to get any one resource you want. It doesn't actually discount anything by one resource, so sorry about that. You have some action abilities here, so let's see if I could find one here with a lightning bolt. This one here, that one had a lightning bolt too, but this one here is a lightning bolt. I will get a time gem as soon as I put this in here for its ability. Some of them will have little infinite signs. So these sides here has a little tiny infinite sign on here. See if I can get this in focus here. Has a little tiny infinite sign. That means I always can pay one less for that disguise resource. And after every player has taken their turn, so they've done their time machine actions, they've moved in Johannesburg, then that time enforcer will move. So if it's a 2-player game, you're going to flip over 1 on each stack. If it's a 3 to 4 player game, you're going to flip over 1. This one's going to go to your armory here in this case. After the enforcement card is revealed, if the enforcer is placed on a occupied city tile, the player must pay the current bribe. So if I was, per se, here, I would have to pay the current bribe, which at this point is 2 money. If I can't pay the current bribe, I get moved over to the prison. If the enforcement deck runs out, you're just going to shuffle the discard and make a new deck. Right, so other things that can happen, we'll take into account these side jobs. So the side jobs, when you complete them, they will generally have, most of them have a per. So this is 3 merits per revised modern science event. So I might want to actually go over after those blue science event and try to make sure they're on the revised side when the game ends. This is when the game ends, not during the game. So that's one of my jobs that I can have. Like I said, at the start of the game, you'll have the 2 and you'll pick one of them. During gameplay, players can gain more side jobs in Johannesburg by going to the capital. Each player is limited to 4 side jobs. Now these side jobs here, you're limited to 4, but you can pick up new ones and you can discard the old side jobs. Side jobs are really important. They can get a ton of points from them. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. One of the other things that's important in this game is you can pick up time locks. Players can protect their captured events by placing a time lock on them, which can be bought at the locksmith or received from action abilities. Each event can only hold 1 time lock, and these time locks can get spent. So if I time lock this one, so I place it here, if something would cause this event to flip to its other side here, I can remove this time lock instead of doing that. Now, if I do decide that I don't want to remove my time lock at this time and let it flip, I keep the time lock. The time lock only goes away once you have used it to protect your card from flipping. So that's something to keep in mind on here. The other thing you can do is you can do time machine upgrades. Upgrades lower the amount of time required to perform a time machine action. They can be bought at the engineer or received as an action ability. So the engineer building right here, nope, that's not the engineer building. Where'd the engineer building go? Here, the engineer building, here. So this has 2 sides. This one here is 1 money for 1 gem upgrade. This is going to be 2 money for 1 gem upgrade. Once I pick this, or once I land on that spot and I take that action, I can pick up one of these little upgrade tokens here, pick where on the time slot I want to upgrade, and now that one is cheaper to go there. So maybe I would want to start knocking this one down. So towards the end of the game, when I want to plop one right there, I don't have to pay so many gems. There's going to be several resources in the game itself. There are only 6 types of actual resources. There's going to be the attaché case, which is going to be this thing right here. Again, these components are up to change here. There's going to be the med kit, which is going to be this little puppy right here. There's going to be a weapon or gun. The game refers to them as weapons, but they're little tiny guns. This one. You also have disguises, which is what we saw on several of the cards, and that's going to be these guys right here. You will also have your camera and your communicator. So this is going to be the camera right here, and these are your communicators. And any of the circles on there, which we saw earlier, is going to be a wild resource. Everything else is not a resource in the game. So money and gems are not necessarily considered resources. You are limited to 10 resources in the game, and that is at the end of your movement. So at the end of your movement, if you have over 10 resources, you have to discard down. Technically, on your turn when you go to a spot, if you have over 10 and spend it before your next move, you are good. Money itself in the game, it's unlimited. You can do whatever number you want with that. And each money at the end of the game, 10 of them is worth 1 merit. So that's going to be the poorest exchange in the entire game. So something you want to keep in mind, just spend your money. And keep money, because you don't want to have to pay money and not have it available at the time and go to that prison. Time gems, players need to pay the correct amount of time gems in order to perform time machine actions like we showed you down here. When a player pays a time gem cost, they will return it to the supply. There's no limit to these time gems. So if you run out of time gems or run out of money in the game, you're going to be able to just find something as a substitute for it. So faction, goal card, and goal markers. So here you're going to be faction. This is going to be one of the ways of finishing the game. You're going to be trying to finish it up. The culture here, you're going to need to revise 2 events. This military, repeat 1 event. Science, revise 1 event, and social, repeat 1 event. Sometimes if these will require like a certain state at the time, so if that state is no longer met, you will remove the token from it, which is these little guys right here, and the event's no longer completed. So keep that in mind. There are also a little flavor text about this one. This one's the Human Prime, founded in 2101, leader Louise I can't speak that name, I'm sorry. History, founded after the first successful birth of a Homo temp, when they believe that Homo sapiens should remain the dominant species and that any organism capable of time travel needs to be eliminated. So that's fun. So that's a fun character right there. So in a really quick nutshell, hopefully that gave you an idea of the rules of the game. And remember, those are all subject to change, so I didn't spend a whole time on them. I just wanted to give you an idea of what those rules were and how in general they applied and what you can actually do in the game. But once someone's captured 9 events or finished their card there, the game will end. Any players left that haven't taken their turn during that round will take their turn. Once that's done, the game will be scored. So calculating your merits earned from the game, and the person with the most merits will win. So you're going to take a look at your captured events. Events score merit scores equal to their dollar amount. So in this case, if it was on this side, which is a reason to keep it up on here, this one will score 5 points, and this one will score 4 points. So at the end of the game, I want to probably try to keep it on the 5-point side. Completed end goals gain you 2 merits each. So each one of these that are completed will get you 2 merits each. Successful side jobs, whatever it is. So like this one here, I will score 3 merits per revised modern science event at the end of the game. And time locks, any time locks that I have remaining on the board will be 2 merits each. Each upgrade that I've placed on my board here, those little upgrade gems here, will be 1 merit each. Every 10 money is 1 merit. And every 3 remaining resources will be 1 merit. The player with the most merits wins. If there's a tie, the player that captured the most events wins. If there's still a tie, they share the victory. Now, there are going to be a couple game variants that you can play in that are from the prototype here. One of the game variants is going to be the 2-player mode. So in the two-player mode, one of the things is going to have 2 enforcers running around the board. The other thing is you are going to have some exceptions to the rules. At the end of each round, draw an enforcement card from each deck. So 2 enforcers running around, you draw 2 at the end of each round. If both enforcers are in the same city tile, the bribe is doubled. So you have to keep that in mind. There's also going to be a solo game. And the solo game here, the objective is to complete the game in so many rounds. So following the steps of a 2-player game by using both enforcers and both enforcement decks, there are also additional solo decks of cards that should be played near the supply. The rules for the solo game are the same as the advanced game, except for the following, which we're going to go over the advanced game shortly here. After 3 rounds, track rounds by counting the enforcer cards, so however many enforcer cards you flipped, draw a solo card, which will add stipulations to the game and affect gameplay. When calculating merits at the end of the game, subtract the number of rounds played from the merit total. So then you're going to take your score, so however many rounds you did, minus that, and that's going to be your rank. So the last mode we're going to talk about, or game variant, is going to be the advanced game. So every faction card has its normal side, which is what we're showing, and it has an advanced side. So you'd flip this to the advanced side. The rules are the same, except for the following. There is only one endgame condition, not 2. So you have to complete all 9 events, so have all 9 events on there, and you have to complete your faction card to end the game. Players may capture events that are not required by their faction card. So in order to use the event's ability, so that's important there. If a player has completely filled up their time machine, they may replace a captured event with a newly captured event, returning the old event to the bottom of the corresponding deck. So that's actually very cool also. Okay, and that's it. I'm hoping that overview helped, keeping in mind that this is a prototype, so stuff will change, but that should give you an idea of the rules and give you an idea of the things that you can do during a game and the overall flow. So to reiterate, the main flow of the game and the main flow of your turn is you're going to be able to take 3 movements, and that can include moving in Johannesburg or moving around your time machine. If you move around your time machine, you have to be able to have the gems to be able to do that action, and the gem cost is on the top. When you move around Johannesburg, you can move anywhere that you want, 1 space away. If you end up in a space with another player, you can't end your turn there. So my 3rd movement can't be there. I'll have to move off before the end of my turn, but I can still do the action. If I end up going to a spot where there is a time enforcer, I have to bribe them, and the bribe level is going to be the current prison bribe amount. If I cross over the prison or end in the prison, I also have to pay the bribe amount, which will be shown there. If I ever can't pay the bribe amount, I get ejected to the prison. So there's all sorts of different actions that you can perform on each of these city spots. If you move to a city spot, it is a may. You don't actually have to perform the action. The only one that isn't an exception is going to be the prison. You must pay the bribe if you land on the prison. And each of these will have a good side and a bad side, or basically a cheaper side and a more expensive side, and those will be flipped throughout the game. The goal of the game is going to have your 9 time cards, or complete your all 4 of your objectives on here too. So either way, that will end the game. So in a quick nutshell, and that was a quick overview of what you're going to be doing, that is Timelancers. Let's go ahead back up the table here and I'll give you my final thoughts on this game. Okay, so again, this is a prototype. I love the game. I really felt it flowed really well. I love those different events. I love the different discounts. I love chaining them on there because it's really cool. Chaining those up to get your discounts to make things cheaper or better or easier to get, and it makes the game go faster and faster as time goes by, which I really, really appreciate. The game overall, I just love. It's an amazing game, and I cannot wait until the final version of this game comes out. I think that all the decisions are meaningful in the game. I like all the different actions that I can perform. I didn't find very many times where I wouldn't perform an action. Time I wouldn't do that is like I needed to get to point B, and I didn't want to pay the money at the current action spot I was. It just happened to be like the easiest way to get there. And I really like getting those events and putting them down on the track and trying to complete my objective, and all sorts of different strategies that you have to think of based on what you got is really good and really fun. The only thing that I thought was a little meh was the bribe stuff. So the bribe stuff, I never really didn't have enough money for this stuff. If you do any events, you have tons of money, so it's not really a problem. So I never felt any like real stress with these time enforcers. They're more like a nuisance more than anything else. And the bribe amounts didn't really seem to matter at all. They were very low. So hopefully, that's the one thing in the game that I thought could probably be beefed up. Other than that, game, I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I just wish that the enforcers were more of a problem in the game instead of just a nuisance. But that's it. I'm super excited to see this game come to crowdfunding, and I'm really excited to see what the final product of this game is. Right now, I think this is amazing. I would play it as is right now without any changes, even with my little reservations on the time enforcers. But like I said, if they do any changes to make it better, that's going to be all the more amazing. So that's my thoughts on the prototype Timelancers. Thank you for watching.